Good. Hello, and welcome back. Let me do my usual introduction. Poems, not pills, okay? I read somewhere that the NHS doctors prescribe 80 million prescriptions a year for depression. Now, I believe poems can help. What I'm doing here is finding poems which are inspiring and cheerful. Okay. Now, the first one is Wild and Unshaped, Glorious, by a man called Dylan Thomas, who was later in life a bit of a drunk, but this is a lovely, joyous poem. All the sun long, running, it was lovely, the hayfields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys, it was air and playing and lovely and watery, fire green as grass. Nightly under the simple stars I rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. All the moon long I heard, blessed among stables, the nightjars, flying with ricks and horses, flashing into the dark. Then to awake in the farm like a wandering wight, with the dew come back, the cock on his shoulder. It was all shining, it was Adam and maiden. The sky was gathering again, and the sun grew round the very day. So it must have been after the birth of the simple light, in the first spinning place, the spellbound horses walking worn out of the whinnying green stable onto the fields of praise, and honoured among foxes and pheasants by the gay house, under the new-made clouds, and happy as the heart was long, in the sun born over and over, I ran my business, my heedless ways. My wishes raced through the house, hay high, and nothing I cared for the blue trades that time allows. In his tuneful turning, so few of morning songs, before the children green and golden followed him out of grace. Nothing I cared in the lamb-white days that time would take me, up to swallow thronged loft by the shadow of my hand. In the moon that is always rising, nor the riding to sleep, I should hear fly from the high fields, and wake to the farm, forever fled from childless land. Oh, I was young and easy in the mercy of his means. Time held me green and dying. Time through I sang in my chains like the sea. Now that's Thomas. It sounds absolutely scatty, but he read it in Welsh. It is a joyous thing about childhood. All your impressions of childhood are muddled. That's what he's trying to do. Now, a similar theme, but much more sober language, a translation from a Frenchman called Verlaine. The sun gently warms and bathes in golden light, sparkling with morning dew, rye and wheat, and blue has kept its freshness from the night, on leaves without a goal except to leave, following a river through waves of yellow grass, on paths of turf lined with alder trees. The air is crisp now and then a bird flies, with wisps of straw or berries in its beak, in reflection of the water legs behind. That's all. Except the rambler loves these scenes. In this clear and gentle countryside, he finds his dream of happiness caressed and sees the charming image of a girl in his mind, singing and scintillating a bright dream. Then the man holds dear and what the poet extols, evoking in his thoughts a smile sweeps across his face, a partner he has found at last, the soul for which his soul has eternally yearned, and weeps. I'm going to read just 6 lines of this in French to illustrate the poetry of the sheer sounds of French poetry. De soleil du matin doucement chauffé et doré, le sigle et les bleus, tout humide encore, et l'azur a gardé sa fraîcheur de la nuit. L'air est vif, par moments un oiseau avec quelques fruits, ou la haie quelques pailles dans son pic. Et son reflet dans l'eau servit à son passage. So, although the French are not terribly good at everything, they're quite good at poetry. The musical aspect of poems can work even on a very bleak subject. Now this is an extract from something by Eliot. I mean, it's a very, very long poem, but this is an extract from it. In the room the women go to and fro, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs its back back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace and made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was soft October night, curled once around the house and fell asleep. Now, to us living in modern times, the idea of London when go out into the street and look up and look at all the houses from the 20s and 30s and count how many chimneys there were. And when you realise how many chimneys there were, you've got to realise how many fireplaces there were. And the kids every day had to go up there and clear the ashes and put wood and sticks and coal. And the whole place was covered in smoke. It's very hard for us to understand that now, but what Eliot is doing here is talking about the fog that would come down because of all the smoke that was coming from all those chimneys. It's amazing how things have changed. This is quite exotic. Kubla Khan, and it's about the language really. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alph the sacred river ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers bright with sinuous rills, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree, and here were forests ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. A savage place, as holy and enchanted as ere beneath the waning moon was haunted by women wailing for her demon lover. And from this chasm with ceaseless turmoil seething, as if this earth was fast flick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced, amid whose swift half-intermittent burst, huge fragments vaulted like a rebounding hail, a chaffy grain beneath the thresher's flail. And mid these dancing rocks once and ever it flung up momentarily a sacred river. There's much more of that poem. But he's describing something that never has existed, but is really rather wonderful. Now, more familiar, A Tiger by William Blake. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the brightness of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant depths or skies burned the fire in thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire, what the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand or what dread feet, what hammer, what chain, in what furnace was the brain, what the anvil, what dread grasp, dare the deadly terrors clasp? And when the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? So that's Blake, who again was religious. People were in those days, looking at a lamb, looking at a tiger, and wondering, how could such a thing be made? Pretty scary. Now, Shakespeare, Sonnet 29, romance without realism or cynicism, okay? When in disgrace with fortunes and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate, wishing me like one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art or that man's scope, and what I most enjoy, contented least. Yet in these moments, myself almost despising, haply I think on thee. And then my state, like to the lark at break of dawn arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate, for thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, as I scorn to change my state with kings. That's rather nice, isn't it? It's a man who's feeling that he's not really up to scratch, but his love makes him special. I like that idea. Jolly old Shakespeare, good bloke. Now, My own life, my children asked me to write a bit about my own life, which, as I have said in previous episodes, was a bit harum-scarum. Our house was bombed in the war. I was put on a train, sent to Norfolk, ended up on a farm run by my aunt. My aunt was not a very cuddly woman. So that's what's gone on so far. Now, sent out of London to Norfolk. People, the aunt, I observed the aunt, thin, tall, ever busy, scary, even the cats scattered. We know now that kids' brains learn a lot from others. I learned not to bother people. Much later I learned that the aunt's husband had been killed in the war and her son had died. She'd been in India, where the Mem Sahibs had nurses and nannies and sent their sons to boarding schools. So she clearly wasn't very good with children. Fortunately for me, aunt had kept an Indian maid or companion. They spoke together, in which I now realise is Punjabi. Anya was her name, and she was to me all the motherly things the aunt wasn't. Aunt was bony, Anya was cuddly. Aunt wore plain. Aya was waddling art exhibition. Aunt smelled slightly of horse, Anya of flowers. Aunt wore one finger ring. Anya indoors wore gold rings on every finger, ears and nose, and silver ones on every toe. The farm had no electricity, no radio, there was no television, so every evening Anya lit an oil lamp or candles and told me stories. Anya's room had lots of pictures and statues about which she told me amazing tales of war and magic. Aunt, who was some kind of fierce Christian, dismissed all this as Hindu nonsense. The God issue made Aunt angry, and Anya admittedly puzzled. She said to me one time, "Your aunt does not even know the name of her own God." She just said, "God. There are many, many gods." Anya would point to me saying, here is a picture of Lord Krishna, here is Lord Shiva. Every god must have their own name. It was through Anya that I learned to use all of my senses. We touched every tree, we named every bird call, we felt and smelled the soil before planting. To Anya, we were just part of nature, not different from it. Remember, this was wartime, food shortages, rationing. Later, under jobs, I write about Anya and me growing for food, but also for medicines, for us and for the huge farm horses, and for dyes and smells, at which Anya was an expert. Well, that's it for this time. Come again. I'll be here. I hope you like it. Bye.